Hello there, everyone. Negotiator here. I specifically want to talk about something that's been on my mind. Solo opened to less than desirable numbers, and the constant stream of negativity on YouTube for Star Wars has been a bit overwhelming. It's made its own subgenre on YouTube. There are just so many YouTube channels that are focused on the hatred of the new films and direction that it takes. The community that now analyzes box office numbers like no tomorrow, that delves deep into the behind-the-scenes issues that arise, anti-SJW points, boycotts, petitions, so much activity fueled through hatred just to validate their points. Even the comments have noted that it's the hatred that fuels them to come back. And the creators note that when they have a video that doesn't hate on the current situation of Star Wars, they don't get as many views. This creates a cycle of hate that grows and grows and has bled into the very aspect of our fandom. Because at this moment, there has been more Star Wars YouTube content than ever, but a lot of that content is hate-fueled. And when you see a movie and delve into the videos surrounding it, it becomes easy to not only fall into the algorithm that pushes these videos like no tomorrow, it is also easy for yourself to click and get sucked into a world of bashing, name-calling, and overall negativity rather than what could be done to improve Star Wars. So that stops here. Not the overall hatred, I can't stop that. But what I can do is stop talking about said hatred, invite those of us who enjoy these new films, enjoy the direction the films are going, and let's just talk about it. Why I am personally excited for the future of Star Wars. The Sequel Trilogy, an era of gray. It's no lie that the previous Star Wars films have always focused on the light and the dark. Not just the Force, but the morality and ethics of characters. Han Solo is a shining outlier in the original trilogy, a rogue with the heart of gold. Anakin in the prequels is a tragic hero who falls to his own demons and circumstances around him that influence him to do wrong, being Palpatine and the Jedi Order. These two characters are, in my opinion, very interesting in this world of factions wanting to align themselves to strictly on one side. The importance of these two characters in a franchise and setting like Star Wars is monumental. And that leads us to the Sequel Trilogy, where our main antagonist is still wrestling with the moral dilemma of what he's done and if he's on the right path, where our old heroes grew up flawed and not perfectly how we envisioned them because, honestly, who does? A stormtrooper, the symbol of the Empire with a growing humanity to leave the bloodshed that he knows is wrong. A pilot who was influenced by the stories of the rebellion results in him wanting to win no matter what, is his major flaw, and given the amount of loss that can result from it. Where the factions, while looking like that old right and wrong perspective still in place, both buy from the same guys who profit off of the war. Gray, gray, gray. And then there's Rey. And I know that sounds like a little bit of an attack on Rey, but it's really not. It's an inverse of the world set up by George Lucas for his gray characters. Now, in a universe of said gray, one shining light stands amongst it all. And by God, sometimes we need that. We need those legends of Luke Skywalker to inspire. We need to have faith in the cause, and we need to have faith in each other. Now, if it isn't clear enough, I love the dynamic between Rey and Kylo Ren, and I love them both as characters. And one day, I'll go more in depth on them, but for now know that Kylo Ren and Rey seem the most interesting because I'm not 100% sure where it will go with them. Mystery is still engulfed in this trilogy for the third installment, and I like not being able to guess what's in store for these characters. I like where they ended off in 8. It's a power play we haven't seen before, where the apprentice takes over a leading faction and the protagonist has to help rebuild the rebellion instead of already joining on an already established one. It's different, and clearly there will be more to see coming from these two. And I know there's a bit of infighting within the community when it comes to these characters. But if we're being honest here, what you hope is going to happen isn't guaranteed. And that goes for everyone. This trilogy has already shown it can subvert expectations, and I think we should expect that going forward, no matter who is writing or directing it. Because The Last Jedi was not only an incredible entry for me and many others, but also a statement, and I don't see them pulling back from that anytime soon. Now, the Anthology Films. As a canon junkie, I love everything about the books and comics of Star Wars. Anything to flesh out my understanding of the galaxy is a welcome read to me. In fact, when friends know I love Star Wars and they get me Star Wars toys, I enjoy them and I appreciate them, but in the back of my mind I always think, oh man, I wish this was a book. And although I love reading these books, I also have to be honest, I'm not the fastest reader. Sometimes I get lost in a page, and it's primarily why I enjoy audiobooks a bit more. And comics even more so, since I love being able to see the story in front of me visualized. But above all else, I am a filmmaker. I watch movies. That is my medium of choice above all other forms of media. So the Anthology Films, or Star Wars story films, never really like calling them that, hit me right at home because these are films that are able to explore the galaxy of Star Wars in a great way, in a way, say, a novel would. And I know a lot of people have a stigma sometimes against the premise of some of these anthology films because they say, like, why do we need this story fleshed out? Or why do we need that explained? And I always feel weird about those questions because it's a bit of a hit on any canon material that focuses in on stories like that. The only difference is these stories are getting a big budget and more recognition because it's a film, and there's a bigger market there, particularly for Star Wars, a film franchise. Really, when people say this would have been better as a novel, aren't they really saying this story didn't need that much attention? It should be skippable? And that's something I feel really unfair for these kinds of stories. I want to see the greater Star Wars universe outside of the main saga. And I don't think it's an issue to say I want to see them on the big screen. It's also, I think, no surprise that these two films we have so far seem to be the favorite of the Star Wars community right now. And that's no accident. There's a lot of nuggets in these films that satisfy hardcore canon junkies and fans who maybe always wanted to see a certain something happen with a certain character, and now it's been realized on the screen. For me, they are never films that I can go beyond the surface level of enjoyment that I have with them. But that's just me. Others really love what these films are, and I'm sure will continue to love what comes next in these anthology films. Now, I want to talk about the future. Because again, what prompted me to talk about this was all these thoughts I've had given all these future installments announcements, and the ending of Solo, yes, that part, just kind of pushed me over the edge to finally motivate me to talk about it. And that's the name of the video. I am excited for the future of Star Wars, because both Solo and The Last Jedi have given promise to more focus on the new. And when I say new, I don't mean all 100% new characters, things we don't recognize anymore. Definitely one day, but I think Star Wars right now still needs to rely a bit on the familiar before we venture out too much. And that's not to say we can't have new stories featuring new factions, new problems, and new characters to take the metaphorical and very literal torch from the previous generation. So, spoiler for Solo, if that wasn't clear enough already. Kira, Han's old friend growing up, betrays, or more so leaves Han in favor of rising up in the ranks of Crimson Dawn and working closely with Maul. This not only shows how connective the anthology films are with outside the film canon, it's also a major Marvel-like plot point that no doubt has to have a payoff later. I know some people will say it'll possibly be paid off in a book or something, but no, you don't reintroduce Maul to the audience to not use him, especially in an ending almost Marvel credit cookie-like fashion. Things are being set up, and I'm excited for new storytelling. Now, where it goes, again, I don't know, but I'll definitely be writing a theory on that as we speak, because yes, Star Wars fans, speculation is not dead. And now The Last Jedi is put into focus of the new by basically reinforcing this is not Luke's story, it's his legacy. And with the sudden and unfortunate passing of Carrie Fisher, our main trio now have to stand on their own, both in-universe and in our own. All this new and focus on new characters really makes my heart soar, and is one of the main reasons I'm excited for this franchise. Oh, and hey, speaking of new, a new animated series by Dave Filoni inspired by the look of anime and World War II fighter pilots taking place shortly before Episode 7, a new Jon Favreau executive-produced live-action TV show taking place a few years after the original trilogy, Benioff and Weiss of Game of Thrones fame creating a series of movies set in the Star Wars universe, the Rian Johnson trilogy, which we also don't know that much about, and of course the rumored Boba Fett and Kenobi anthology films. That's a lot of Star Wars, and I get where some people can be concerned that the franchise could run into the ground. But I've loved what we've gotten. They have been doing from fine to holy shit box office wise, and I think comparing it to Marvel isn't the worst thing. Because Marvel is now big enough to be compared to. It's now a cultural phenomenon that can be compared to Star Wars. It's not an insult to Star Wars, it's praise for Marvel. And that leads me to say, if Marvel can have multiple TV shows and more than one movie a year, I think Star Wars can handle just one movie a year, and thus far one live-action TV show and one animated one. I don't know, and yes, with Star Wars, especially nowadays, things are never set in stone. The Disney streaming service is still coming out, and we are still waiting to hear how that will change things up. But one thing is for sure, these movies have its fans. I know sometimes it looks like no one is enjoying these films depending on where you are on those YouTube recommended videos, but that's just not true. The numbers, a lot of reactions, the critics' reactions show that Star Wars is fine, and it's not going anywhere. So if you are enjoying the ride along with me and many others who love these films, I ask this: what's your favorite thing about the new films? It can be a character, a plot point, an overall movie, just something. We don't even have to agree 100% on the topics covered in this video. Just share an aspect of the films you love. And I already know some people will definitely get snarky in the comments, but allow me to say, even if just one person says something they like about the movies, then I know I made a connection with a like-minded fellow Star Wars fan. So thank you everyone, and may the Force be with you.